You were told to set goals. Big ones, clear ones, specific ones. Write them down. Read them every morning. Visualize them like they already happened. And if you did that consistently enough, success would follow. That's the story. But here's the uncomfortable reality. Your goals aren't pushing you forward. They're quietly exhausting you. They're creating pressure instead of momentum. And over time, they're training your brain to associate ambition with stress. That's why every new goal excites you for a few days and then drains you for weeks. You don't notice it at first. It shows up subtly. You start strong, motivated, focused, certain this time will be different. Then the weight arrives. The gap between where you are and where you want to be starts screaming. Every day you don't make progress, the goal turns into a reminder of failure. Not because you failed, but because the goal was designed to judge you. Most goals are future-focused threats. They say, "You're not there yet," and your brain hears that as danger. So instead of pulling you forward, the goal activates anxiety, and anxiety doesn't create action. It creates avoidance. That's the first thing nobody tells you. Goals don't motivate the brain. They stress it, especially when the goal is big, vague, and far away. Your brain doesn't move well under constant evaluation. It moves well under clarity. But your goals don't give clarity. They give distance. You say, "I want to make more money." Now every purchase feels wrong. You say, "I want to be consistent." Now every missed day feels like proof you're unreliable. You say, "I want to change my life." Now everything you do feels small and pointless. So instead of taking clean action, you hesitate, you overthink, you procrastinate, and then you blame yourself. You think you lack discipline. You think you lack willpower. But the truth is simpler. You're setting goals that attack your identity instead of guiding your behavior. That's why progress feels heavy. Here's the second problem. And it's worse. Your goals live in the future, but action only happens in the present. So your mind is always somewhere else. You're always thinking about later, next month, next year. When I finally get there, that creates a split. Your mind lives in the future. Your body lives in today. And the gap between them creates frustration. You start thinking, "I should be further by now. I'm running out of time. Others are ahead of me." That self-talk doesn't push you forward. It drains you because pressure doesn't create momentum. Momentum comes from evidence. Evidence that today mattered. Your goals don't give you evidence. They give you expectations. And expectations without control destroy confidence. That's why you keep resetting goals. New month, new plan, new burst of hope, same outcome. Because nothing changed at the behavioral level. You set goals like wishes, not like systems. And wishes don't change how you live on a random Tuesday. That's the real test. If a goal doesn't tell you what to do when motivation is gone, it's useless. Now let's talk about the lie you've been sold. You've been told goals are supposed to inspire you, make you excited, fire you up. That's backwards. If your goal requires constant emotional energy to sustain, it will fail. Emotion is unstable. Identity is stable. High performers don't rely on goals to feel motivated. They use goals to remove decision. Your goals are adding decisions. Every day you wake up asking, "Do I feel like working on this? Is today the right day? Should I push or rest?" That debate is where energy goes to die. The most dangerous thing about your goals is that they give you something to fantasize about. You imagine the outcome, the money, the freedom, the confidence, and fantasy feels good. So good that it replaces action. Your brain gets a dopamine hit from imagining success without doing the work. So when it's time to act, the urgency is gone. This is why goal setting often reduces urgency instead of increasing it. You've already experienced the win in your head. Execution feels less rewarding by comparison. This is also why watching motivational content feels productive but changes nothing. It feeds fantasy, not behavior. Now, here's the third problem. You use goals as a way to avoid commitment. This sounds wrong, but it's true. Setting a goal feels like progress. It gives you the identity of someone working on something, but nothing in your environment has to change. You don't have to say no to anything. You don't have to remove distractions. You don't have to disappoint anyone. So the goal stays safe, abstract, flexible, and negotiable. Every time you miss a goal and reset it, you teach your brain a lesson. Goals don't matter. So the next time you set one, your brain doesn't take it seriously. Motivation fades faster. Resistance shows up sooner. You start thinking something is wrong with you, but nothing is wrong with you. You just trained yourself to break promises quietly. That kills self-trust. And without self-trust, no system works. Now let's talk about the deepest issue. Your goals assume a version of you that doesn't exist yet. You set goals that require discipline, confidence, and consistency from a person who hasn't built those traits yet. So you force behavior that your identity can't support. That creates internal conflict. Part of you wants the outcome. Another part resists the daily cost. And resistance always wins long term. That's why you start strong and fade out. You weren't lazy. You were misaligned. You tried to act like a different person without becoming them first. Goals don't create identity. Identity creates behavior. Behavior creates results. You're trying to reverse the order, and it's exhausting. Now notice something important. Your worst days are not days you did nothing. They're days you did things that felt meaningless. Busy days, full days, but empty days. That's because your goals don't translate into clear daily wins. You can't tell if today counted, so your brain gets no reward signal. And without reward, it resists repeating the behavior. You think you need more discipline. What you actually need is better feedback. High performers don't wait months to feel progress. They design their days to prove something daily. Not to the world, to themselves. Your goals don't do that. They delay proof. And delayed proof kills momentum. This is why pressure builds over time. At first, goals feel exciting. Then they feel heavy. Then they feel threatening. Then you avoid them. Not consciously, subtly. You scroll instead of act. You research instead of execute. You plan instead of commit. And because it's subtle, you don't call it avoidance. You call it preparation. But deep down, you know something is off. You feel busy but stuck. Ambitious but tired. Motivated but inconsistent. That contradiction isn't your fault. It's the design. Your goals are designed to keep you living in the future, while your life happens today. And when today feels unclear, progress stops. This is the trap. Goals were supposed to give direction. Instead, they give pressure. They were supposed to simplify decisions. Instead, they complicate them. They were supposed to motivate. Instead, they quietly erode confidence. So what do high performers do differently? They don't abandon goals. They demote them. Goals are not drivers. They're boundaries. They don't wake up chasing goals. They wake up protecting standards. Standards decide behavior. Goals just point the direction. Your mistake is using goals as fuel. Fuel burns out. Standards don't. This is where the shift begins. But before the solution, there's one more truth you need to face. Most of your goals are ego goals. They're about how you want to feel, how you want to look, how you want to be seen. That's why missing them hurts so much. They're tied to your worth, so every setback feels personal. High performers separate worth from outcomes. They don't let goals define them. They let rules define them. Rules are unemotional. Rules don't care how you feel. Rules don't negotiate. And rules don't pressure you with the future. They only care about now. That's why they work. Because once you stop setting goals the old way, you need a replacement. And that replacement changes how you think, act, and progress permanently. Here's what actually replaces goal setting when you stop sabotaging yourself. You stop chasing outcomes. You start enforcing rules, not inspirational rules. Not motivational slogans. Behavioral rules. Rules that decide your actions before emotions show up. This is the shift almost nobody makes because it feels boring. And boring doesn't sell. But boring compounds. Goals try to pull you forward with hope. Rules push you forward with certainty. That difference is everything. A goal says, I want to get fit. A rule says, I don't miss workouts I scheduled. A goal says, I want to make more money. A rule says, I spend the first hour of my workday on revenue-producing tasks. A goal asks your emotions for permission. A rule removes the vote entirely. That's why rules work when motivation disappears. And motivation always disappears. Here's the mistake you keep making. You think progress comes from wanting something badly enough? It doesn't. It comes from reducing decision fatigue. Every day you wake up with limited mental energy. If your system requires you to decide to be disciplined every morning, you've already lost. High performers don't decide daily. They decided once, then they obey the decision. That's the quiet advantage. Your goals require constant recommitment. Their rules require none. This is why your best days feel random. Some days you're on, some days you're not. That inconsistency isn't a character flaw. It's a system flaw. You built a system that depends on mood. Mood is unstable. Rules are not. Now, let's talk about why rules don't feel appealing at first. Because rules remove fantasy. Goals let you imagine the finish line. Rules force you to face the process. And the process is not glamorous. It's repetitive. It's uncomfortable. It's uncelebrated. So your ego resists. Your ego wants big goals because big goals feel important. Rules feel small. But small actions repeated daily beat big dreams repeated monthly. That's the trade nobody wants to accept. Here's another truth that stings. Your goals give you emotional spikes. Your rules give you emotional stability. Stability doesn't feel exciting, but stability is where momentum lives. You don't need to feel inspired to move forward. You need to feel certain about what today requires. Certainty calms the nervous system, and a calm nervous system performs better. This is why pressure disappears when rules replace goals. You stop thinking about how far you have to go. You only think about whether you followed the rule today. That's a binary answer. Yes or no. No interpretation. No judgment. No spiral. That alone removes 70% of the mental weight you're carrying. Now let's address the fear you haven't admitted yet. If I stop focusing on goals, how do I know I'm making progress? Here's the answer. Progress is not measured by distance from an outcome. It's measured by consistency of behavior. High performers don't ask, am I closer? They ask, did I keep the standard? If yes, the day was a win, even if nothing visible changed. That creates momentum without anxiety, because momentum is psychological before it's external. You don't build momentum by achieving things. You build it by keeping promises to yourself. That's why your confidence feels fragile, not because you failed, because you keep setting goals you don't enforce. Broken promises, no matter how small, erode self-trust. Rules rebuild it, slowly, quietly, reliably. Now, here's where most people mess this up. They try to create too many rules. 5 rules, 10 rules, morning routines, night routines, weekly systems. That collapses under its own weight. The point of rules is simplification, not control. You only need one primary rule per season. One rule that directly moves your life forward. Everything else is optional. This is how high performers avoid burnout. They don't chase everything. They protect one lane. When that lane is stable, they add another. You try to change everything at once. Then you wonder why nothing sticks. That's not ambition. That's impatience. Impatience is how goals quietly destroy you. You want results fast, so you overload yourself. Then you quit. Then you reset. Then you feel behind. Rules slow you down on purpose, because slow consistency beats fast collapse. Now, let's talk about the identity shift that happens when you do this right. You stop seeing yourself as someone trying. You become someone who follows rules. That sounds boring, but it's powerful, because now your self-image isn't tied to outcomes. It's tied to integrity. You trust yourself again, and self-trust is leverage. Once you trust yourself, Decision-making becomes easier. You don't debate. You don't negotiate. You don't spiral. You act. That's why disciplined people look calm. They're not forcing themselves. They're obeying standards they already accepted. This is also why comparison fades. When your metric is behavior, not outcome, other people's success doesn't threaten you. You're not racing them. You're enforcing your rule. That quiet confidence compounds. Now let's talk about the resistance that will show up. Your mind will say, "This isn't enough. I need something bigger. I should be doing more." That voice is ego. Ego wants dramatic change. Rules create gradual change. Ego wants recognition. Rules operate in silence, so ego gets bored. And boredom is dangerous if you don't understand it. Boredom is not a sign something is wrong. It's a sign you removed emotional chaos. Most people mistake boredom for stagnation and reintroduce pressure. They add goals, deadlines, urgency. They break the system that was working. Don't do that. Let boring work. Boring is sustainable. Now here's the part that separates people permanently. Once you adopt rules, you stop asking, "Am I motivated?" You ask, "What's the rule?" That question ends arguments. You don't need to feel ready. You don't need clarity. You don't need confidence. You just need obedience to your own standard. This is how progress becomes inevitable. Not exciting, inevitable. That's what you actually want. Not motivation, not hype. Momentum you can rely on. Now, let's bring this home with something practical. Take your biggest goal right now. Erase the outcome completely. Then ask one question. What behavior, if repeated daily, would make this goal inevitable over time? That behavior becomes the rule. Not 5 behaviors. 1. Make it clear. Make it enforceable. Make it boring. Examples. I write 500 words before checking messages. I train at the same time, 4 days a week, no exceptions. I make 1 uncomfortable outreach per workday. Notice something. None of these require motivation. They require compliance. Compliance with yourself. That's power. Track the rule, not results, not feelings, just execution. After 2 weeks, something shifts, not externally, internally. You start trusting yourself again, and when you trust yourself, progress accelerates without pressure. Now the final challenge. This is not symbolic. This is structural. Delete every goal you currently have. Every one. Then write 1 rule that applies starting tomorrow. 1 rule you will follow even when you don't feel like it. Not forever. For 30 days. At the end of those 30 days, look at your life. Not your outcomes. Your clarity. Your confidence. Your consistency. If this reframed how you see progress, leave a comment with 1 word. Standards. And subscribe if you want more of this. Not motivation, not pressure, but systems that make progress unavoidable. Because goals don't change lives. What you do every day does. And once you stop setting goals the wrong way, progress finally stops fighting you.